When you think of a moon lander, your mind immediately goes to NASA's Apollo 11. Neil Armstrong's famous words, "One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind," are words that will be celebrated through the centuries. But it has been 52 years since NASA has seen one of its spacecrafts on the lunar surface. And for those thinking that NASA is done for, you would be wrong. With NASA's new plan of establishing a moon base in the next couple of years, you will certainly be blown away. NASA's top-tier scientists and engineers have been actively working on this project, which they call the Artemis project. So how does NASA plan on establishing a base on a place so different to the Earth? And how will they transport all the resources required to the moon? We'll be answering these questions and more in today's video, so stick around to the end. The United States of America has entered a new period of exploration. The Artemis program will take us to the moon and prepare us for the next major leap, Mars exploration. It's been nearly 50 years since astronauts last walked on the moon during the Apollo mission, and since then, robotics has advanced significantly. Deep space exploration has seen decades of technological improvement and scientific breakthroughs. For the past 20 years, humans have lived and worked on the International Space Station, 250 miles above the surface of the Earth, preparing for the day when humans travel deeper into the solar system. Sending humans 250,000 miles away to the moon requires a strong vision, efficient program management, financing for the creation of new systems, mission operations, and assistance from all corners within NASA, as well as our international partners. Since then-President Donald Trump called on NASA to lead a human return to the moon and beyond with commercial and international partners on December 2017, the agency has been fine-tuning the strategy to achieve that daring objective. To reach those goals, NASA is implementing the Artemis program. The moon plan is twofold. It aims to achieve the goal of a first human landing by 2024 and also working toward long-term lunar exploration in the mid to late 2020s. Though the question you may ask is, why 2024? Well, this date is not chosen at random. NASA's success on the moon and eventually on Mars has been based on calculations, plannings, and strategies that were laid out decades ago before the internet even came into existence. The United States currently leads in space exploration. However, as more countries and companies aim for the moon, America will need to land as soon as possible to maintain and expand its advantage, as well as prepare for a historic first human journey to Mars. Consider this landing as the stepping stone to establishing a stronger moon base. All technological and practical problems will be understood with this landing, and remedies will be implemented in future landings. It also sets the path for commercial firms in the United States and other partners to contribute more to the moon's exploration and development. The agency now has the foundation needed to return humans to lunar orbit. With the powerful Space Launch System rocket and Orion spacecraft nearing completion of testing and development, NASA hopes to make full use of early Artemis missions by doing more testing for Orion and the Human Touchdown System as soon as feasible in order to ensure the safest possible lunar landing. The Gateway is an important part of the agency's long-term lunar operations. On Earth, NASA will connect the first two elements by launching the power and propulsion element and the habitation and logistics outpost on the same rocket in 2023. Followed by a commercial logistics supply mission. Orion will send its crew to lunar orbit in 2024. The commercially manufactured lander that will transport the crew to the lunar surface will be capable of docking directly to Iron for early Artemis missions. Still, NASA is keeping the option of docking to the Gateway open. One way to look at the 52-year break that NASA had taken from sending their astronauts is by saying that this time was wasted and resources could have been better used to make or at least attempt to make some significant breakthroughs. However, NASA is saying, which of course we agree to, is that they have used this time to make hardware and architectural advancements and are strengthening the process to establish a moon base. NASA was already developing 21st century deep space habitation capabilities and investing in lunar lander technology through partnerships with US businesses. Improved safety measures, bespoke fitting, simplified maintenance, and improved communications have resulted in a lunar surface suit that allows for more frequent spacewalks. A multi-agency architecture team was also working on concepts for a gateway that would orbit the moon. Once NASA got permission from the highest authorities of the United States, their path was clear. An added bonus is they also received strong international support. Countries involved with the International Space Station also suggested their own methods of making this establishment stronger. For the first time in more than 50 years, Artemis II, the first crewed flight of SLS and Orion, will bring 4 people to the lunar environment. The Apollo 8 moment for the Artemis generation will occur when astronauts aboard Orion capture the entire globe of the Earth from afar as a backdrop to the moon. The Artemis II crew will board Orion atop the SLS for an approximate 10-day mission where they will set a record for the farthest human travel beyond the far side of the moon in a hybrid-free return trajectory, based on the Artemis I mission and the thousands of hours put into the prior flight and ground testing. The crew will be launched on board Orion by the SLS rocket, and the spacecraft will make 2 orbits around Earth before embarking on its journey to the moon. The elliptical orbit will last roughly 90 minutes, with the perigee altered by the rocket's first firing of the interim cryogenic propulsion stage. Orion will first attain an initial insertion orbit at the height of 1,800 miles, and the elliptical orbit will last approximately 90 minutes. Following the first orbit, the rocket's ICPS will provide thrust to lift Orion into a high Earth orbit, where it will sail in an elliptical orbit for 42 hours at approximately 59,000 miles above the Earth. NASA received its funding from the United States Congress, and since the funds provided are limited, NASA had made a very smart decision by collaborating with 2 of the biggest space giants in the world. These would be Jeff Bezos's Blue Origin and Elon Musk's SpaceX. During the Artemis missions, these companies are to begin development work on the HLS, which would land astronauts on the moon and then safely return them to lunar orbit before returning to Earth. Early development operations will conclude in early 2021 with a preliminary design level review, during which NASA will evaluate which designs are the most mature in order to achieve the first human return to the moon on Artemis. These companies proposed 3 different lander and mission designs, each with its own level of safety, resulting in a wide range of technological advancements and eventually more long-term viability for lunar surface access. All 3 can dock with Orion or the Gateway to accept astronauts in lunar orbit, giving NASA greater mission planning flexibility. Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, and Draper are part of the Human Landing System team led by Blue Origin. Blue Origin is creating the descent element, Lockheed Martin is building the ascent element, which includes the crew cabin, and Northrop Grumman is building the transfer element for their integrated lander vehicle. Guidance, navigation, and control, as well as avionics and software systems, will be provided by Draper.